The first time I saw him, he was sprinting, full speed, arms pumping, face slack and colorless. Like something behind him was about to close its teeth around his spine. I was halfway up the ridge trail when he tore past me. It was late afternoon in early October, the kind of day where the air feels thin and metallic in your lungs. The forest had already started to yellow at the edges. Leaves flashed like coins in the canopy. The gravel under my boots made that dry, grinding sound that always reminds me of bones shifting in a drawer. I'd chosen the trail because it was supposed to be empty. That was the point. A spontaneous decision that morning. Throw clothes in a bag, grab the tent, drive until the highway thinned, and the cell service blinked out. I told myself I needed quiet, space, the kind of privacy only trees could offer. The sign at the trailhead read Willow Creek Loop. 11 miles, moderate, no fires outside designated pits, no drones. No warnings about men sprinting like their lives depended on it. I'd hiked maybe 3 miles in when I heard him. Not footsteps at first, breathing. It came ragged and animalistic. Somewhere behind me, a rhythm too fast for hiking. I stepped off the trail automatically, thinking someone was running for exercise. People do that now. They turn wilderness into cardio. But when he came into view, I felt something in my stomach tighten. He wasn't dressed for running. Dark jeans, heavy boots, a gray long-sleeve shirt clinging to him with sweat. His arms pumped in stiff, mechanical jerks. His mouth hung open. But his eyes didn't move. He ran past me without slowing, without acknowledging me. Not a nod, not a glance. He was pale in a way that looked powdery, almost chalked, like he dusted himself in flour. I caught a smell as he passed. Not sweat, something sour, metallic. I turned, expecting to see whatever he was fleeing. The trail behind him lay empty, just a thin ribbon of dirt bending between trees. Sunlight fractured through branches. Nothing chased him. "Hey," I called out. He didn't react. The sound of his boots striking the ground echoed long after he disappeared around the curve. I stood there for a while, listening. The forest resumed slowly, like it had been holding its breath. A bird called once, uncertainly. Wind shifted the upper leaves. Somewhere far off, a woodpecker tapped. I told myself he was just a guy training for something, or running from a fight, or high. People go into forests for all kinds of reasons. I continued hiking, but I kept glancing over my shoulder. The campsite I'd reserved was near the creek at the loop's midpoint. A small clearing with a metal fire ring and a weathered picnic table scarred with initials. By the time I arrived, the sun had dipped lower, turning everything copper. The clearing was empty. I dropped my pack and let the silence settle around me. It felt thick, dense, like the air carried weight. Privacy, I reminded myself. This was what I wanted. I pitched the tent methodically. The repetitive motion calmed me. Unfold, stake, thread the poles. My fingers worked automatically. I've always liked systems, steps, predictability. As I crouched to hammer in the final stake, I felt it. The sensation of being watched. It wasn't dramatic. No snap of a twig, no breath at my neck, just the awareness of eyes. I straightened slowly. The tree line stood about 20 feet from the clearing. Pines clustered close together, their trunks long and narrow, bark peeling in thin strips. The spaces between them looked darker than they should have been for that hour. Nothing moved. I let out a quiet laugh. Get a grip. The words sounded swallowed in the open space. I busied myself with small tasks, laying out my sleeping bag, organizing food in the bare canister. The creek gurgled somewhere beyond the trees, low and steady. It should have been comforting. Instead, every sound felt separate, detached, like each one existed on its own plane. I cooked a simple meal as dusk thickened. The sky bruised purple behind the treetops. I kept replaying the image of the runner's face, the slack mouth, the eyes fixed forward. I realized something then that I hadn't consciously registered before. He hadn't looked afraid. He'd looked empty. As darkness settled fully, I zipped myself inside the tent and switched on my headlamp. The interior glowed dull orange, fabric walls, thin, temporary. I checked my phone out of habit. No service. I lay back and listened. The forest at night is louder than people expect. Insects trill in high. Constant waves, leaves shift, small animals move, with quick, brittle sounds. Water carries differently. I tried to categorize each noise: squirrel, wind, branch. Then, sometime after I'd started drifting toward sleep, I heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Not the scattered scrabble of a raccoon. Not the 4-beat rhythm of a deer. 2 feet. Running. The sound tore through the darkness beyond my tent. Rapid. Crushing leaves. Grinding dirt. Circling the clearing. I froze. The footsteps didn't falter. They moved in a wide arc around the campsite, then faded. Silence rushed back in. I sat upright. Heart steady, but heavy. I wasn't panicking. Not yet. My mind moved through explanations. Another camper. A late arrival. Someone jogging the loop trail. But no light cut through the trees. No voices. No zipper of a tent opening nearby. I reached for the zipper of my own tent and hesitated. Opening it felt like consent. Instead, I turned off my headlamp and let darkness fill the interior. Minutes passed. Then it came again. Closer. The sprinting was erratic now, cutting sharp angles. Leaves snapping underfoot. A branch cracked. I heard breathing. Louder this time. Wet. Dragged through teeth. It circled once more and stopped. Right outside the clearing. I could sense the exact point where the trees began. I imagined him there, just beyond the thin veil of branches, watching the dim outline of my tent. The nylon fabric shifted faintly as a breeze moved through, or as someone brushed against it. "Hello?" I called out before I could stop myself. My voice sounded small. No answer, but a slow exhale drifted through the dark. Not wind. Breath. I didn't move for a long time. My legs began to ache from tension. My ears strained until every small sound felt amplified. Eventually, exhaustion overrode vigilance. I lay back down, fully clothed, knife tucked beside my thigh. Sleep came in shallow fragments. I dreamed of sprinting, of running through trees that bent inward, narrowing the path until it became a tunnel. I could hear someone ahead of me, always just out of sight. I ran harder, desperate to catch up or escape. I couldn't tell which. When I woke, dawn seeped gray through the tent walls. For a few seconds, everything felt normal. Then I remembered. I unzipped the tent slowly. The clearing looked unchanged. Pale light stretched across the ground. Mist hung low near the creek. No footprints were obvious in the dirt around the tent, but the leaves beyond the clearing, they were disturbed. A wide arc where they'd been crushed and kicked aside. I stepped closer. The pattern circled the campsite completely. I swallowed. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay. Maybe someone had been messing with me. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe I'd exaggerated the sound in my head." I packed quickly. The feeling of privacy I'd craved now felt like exposure. There was no one to witness anything here. No one to intervene. The hike back to the trailhead passed without incident. I scanned every bend before rounding it. No sign of the runner. When my car finally came into view, relief washed through me so sharply, I almost laughed. Then I saw the driver's side door. The handle hung crooked. I approached slowly. The metal around the handle was bent, scratched deeply. The plastic casing cracked. It looked like someone had gripped it and pulled with violent force. My stomach dipped. The door was still locked, windows intact. Whoever had done it hadn't gotten inside. I stood there, keys in hand, staring at the damage. A thought formed, quiet and persistent. He hadn't been running from something. He'd been running to something. And last night, he'd found it. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel. For days afterward, I told no one. I researched the trail online. Instead, forums, reviews. I expected at least one mention. Strange guy, creepy jogger, something. Nothing. Just comments about scenic views and moderate elevation gain. The absence of information unsettled me more than any warning would have. At night, I found myself replaying the breathing outside my tent, the deliberate circling. Sometimes, lying in my own bed, I would think I heard it again. 2 feet hitting pavement outside my apartment. Running. I told myself, trauma can echo. The brain replays threats to process them. But one evening, a week later, I looked out my living room window and saw a man on the sidewalk below, standing still, face tilted up toward my building, too far away to see clearly, but pale. He didn't move for a long time. Neither did I. Eventually, he turned and walked out of view. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I inspected my car again before leaving for work. There were new scratches along the passenger side door, thin, dragged, as if something sharp had been traced across the paint. I felt something inside me begin to split. Rational thought on one side, recognition on the other. The forest had felt Vast, impersonal, safe in its scale, but privacy, I was learning, is an illusion. You can be completely alone and still be chosen. That night, as I lay awake, I heard it clearly from somewhere down the street, sprinting closer, closer, and then stopping directly outside my building. I held my breath, a long pause, then faintly, a hand testing a door handle, slow, persistent, as if it already knew which one was mine. The first night I heard the footsteps, I told myself they belonged to someone who had every right to be there. The trail was regulated. Permits, quotas, assigned campsites, bare canister requirements. It wasn't wilderness in the romantic sense. It was managed, numbered, a backcountry with rules printed in bold on laminated boards at the ranger station. That's what I held on to when the crunch started outside my tent sometime after midnight. A measured tread, not the chaotic rustle of a deer, not the quick, darting scramble of a raccoon nosing for food. These were human steps. Heel, pause, toe, weight shifting on gravel. I lay still inside my sleeping bag, breath slow, eyes open to the nylon ceiling, glowing faintly blue from moonlight. The forest around me was otherwise quiet, pine boughs whispering in a lazy breeze. The faint hiss of the creek, 50 yards downhill. The footsteps circled once. I counted them. 8 steps. Stop. 4 more. Stop. I pictured another backpacker arriving late, headlamp off to preserve night vision. Maybe they'd misjudged the mileage between camps. Maybe they were embarrassed about it, trying not to wake anyone. The trail log at the ranger station had shown a few solo hikers starting the same day I did. Wyatt, Travis, Cody. Names scrawled in neat penmanship or rushed block letters. I'd noticed them in passing as I wrote my own name beneath. I rolled onto my side and unzipped the tent an inch. Cold air slid in, smelling like wet bark and iron-rich soil. Moonlight silvered the clearing. My food bag hung from the bear pole. My boots sat where I'd left them. No one stood there. The crunching had stopped. I listened for breathing, for the click of trekking poles, for the mechanical whir of someone adjusting a headlamp. Nothing. The silence wasn't dramatic. It was ordinary. The kind that settles in remote places when nothing at all is happening. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd dreamed it. The second night, I didn't pretend. The day between was uneventful on paper. 10 miles of switchbacks, sun filtered through lodgepole pine, the smell of warm sap. I passed 2 couples hiking in opposite directions. We exchanged nods and the brief camaraderie of strangers, temporarily sharing geography. Water's running strong at mile 6, one of the women told me. Fill up there. Thanks, I said, smiling. She glanced at the map clipped to my shoulder strap. You camping at Cedar Hollow? Yeah, nice site, she said. Good tree cover. It felt good to talk, to hear another voice in the woods. Cedar Hollow sat in a bowl-shaped depression ringed by rock. The ground was soft with years of fallen needles. I set up before dusk, cooked dehydrated chili, and watched the light drain from the sky through a canopy that turned from green to charcoal. I double-checked my permit tag on the post. Site 14, assigned, mine for the night. The footsteps started earlier this time, not midnight, maybe 10. I was brushing my teeth when I saw it first. A light weaving between the trees at the edge of camp. Not bright, not a sweeping beam, more like a steady glow, low to the ground. A headlamp. I spat, wiped my mouth, and called out, "Hey, Site 14's taken." The light paused. Then it moved sideways, deeper into the trees. I stepped forward, toothbrush still in hand. You looking for 15? It's about another quarter mile. No answer. The glow flickered once, twice, then vanished. Not like someone turned it off. Like someone stepped behind something that swallowed it whole. I stood there long enough for the cold to seep through my fleece. The trees were black columns against a darker sky. No beam reappeared. No voice apologized for the confusion. I told myself it was a trick of angles, a ridge blocking the line of sight. A hiker who'd found their sight and cut the light. I went to bed with the zipper fully closed this time. The crunching returned, closer. I didn't unzip the tent. I didn't move at all. The steps approached the foot of my tent and stopped. I could see the faint outline of boots through the nylon, a distortion in the moonlight, a shadow where there hadn't been one. Every instinct told me to speak, to assert presence, to force the moment into normalcy. Instead, I waited. Seconds stretched into something elastic and painful. My mouth went dry. My ears strained so hard they rang. The shadow shifted, then retreated, slowly, heel, toe, heel. It circled the tent once, deliberate, and then faded into the dark. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found footprints in the soft soil near the creek, deep impressions, larger than mine. No tread pattern I recognized. They weren't there when I'd filtered water at dusk. I would have noticed. I stood over them longer than I should have, my brain assembling rational explanations, like a defense attorney building a case. Someone arrived late, someone left early, someone curious. The regulated trail wasn't private, it was shared. Still, I packed faster than usual. The third day, the forest felt altered, not visibly. The trees were still trees. The sky still a thin, washed out blue, but sound carried differently. Every snapped twig echoed longer. Every bird call seemed sharper, like it cut through the air instead of resting in it. I checked behind me more often. The trail curved along a ridge mid-afternoon, offering a view of the valley I'd climbed from. I paused to drink and scanned the switchbacks below. A figure moved between the trees, far enough to blur into abstraction, close enough that I knew it wasn't an animal. He wasn't using trekking poles, no visible pack, just a dark shape keeping steady pace. My pulse didn't spike. It dulled, like something pressing a thumb against an artery. I started walking again. The figure did too, not matching my speed exactly, just maintaining distance. I told myself I was projecting, that hikers naturally fall into similar rhythms on long ascents. At the next water crossing, I stepped off trail and pretended to adjust my boot laces. I watched through the corner of my eye. He didn't appear. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing. I felt foolish standing there, staring at trees. By late afternoon, clouds gathered and pressed low over the peaks. The air thickened with the metallic scent of impending rain. My assigned site for the night sat near a meadow, a wide, open space with knee-high grass that rippled under the wind. I hated the exposure immediately. No tree cover to muffle sound, no density to hide within. I set up anyway. Rules were rules. The first drop of rain hit the tent just after dark. By 9, it was steady. The sound should have been comforting, a white noise blanket. Instead, it blurred everything else. If someone approached, I wouldn't hear them until they were on top of me. I lay on my back, staring at the faint outline of seams overhead. That's when I heard it. Not footsteps. My name. Soft, almost conversational. Mara. It slid through the rain like it belonged there. I didn't react immediately. My brain needed to sort the sound from the storm. Mara. Closer this time. Not shouted, not whispered, spoken. The zipper at the front of my tent trembled slightly as wind pushed against it. I stared at it, as if it might unzip itself. My permit hung from the post outside. My name printed in black ink, visible. Anyone could have read it. Anyone. I swallowed and forced my voice steady. Who's there? Rain answered for him. Then, you hike fast. The voice was male, calm, young-ish. No discernible accent, no strain. I imagined a normal explanation. A fellow backpacker making awkward conversation in the rain. You need something? I asked. A pause. I've been trying to catch up. The phrasing tightened something in my chest. You could have just said hi on the trail. Another pause. I did. I hadn't heard anyone say my name before tonight. I didn't respond. The rain intensified, drumming hard enough to distort direction. Then I saw him. A silhouette inches from the tent wall. No pack, no hood, just the outline of a man standing too close. Lightning flickered somewhere distant, illuminating the meadow for a split second. His face appeared through nylon, smiling, wide, too wide. The light vanished as quickly as it came, plunging us back into dark. I like how you walk, he said softly, confident. My body moved before my mind did. I grabbed my headlamp, snapped it on, and lunged for the zipper. By the time I tore it open and swung the beam outward, the meadow was empty. Rain lashed sideways, grass flattened in wind. No figure, no footprints visible in the churned mud. Nothing. I stood barefoot in the storm, light shaking in my hand. The voice replayed in my skull with precise clarity. You hike fast. I didn't sleep. At dawn, the storm had passed. Mist hovered over the meadow, thick and low. I packed without eating, halfway through rolling my tent. I found something tucked beneath the rainfly seam, a scrap of paper, dry, folded once, my name written in black marker, not copied from the permit tag. This was handwriting, rounded, careful. Inside, only 2 words: I see you. The trail that day felt narrower than before. I moved quickly, breath shallow, scanning every bend. I expected him to materialize at any second, smiling, calling my name, like we were old friends meeting by chance. Around noon, I reached a junction with a small wooden signpost. An emergency ranger box sat beside it, a metal container with forms and a radio channel listed for contact. My fingers hovered over it. What would I say? A man spoke my name. A light flickered in trees. Footsteps circled my tent. None of it was concrete, none of it provable. The ranger station was 2 days ahead. I could report then. I closed the box. That's when I heard the voice again, behind me. Close. Mara. I turned. He stood 10 feet away on the trail. No pack, no trekking poles, just a dark green jacket zipped to his throat and hiking boots splattered with mud. He looked normal. That was the worst part. Mid-20s maybe, light stubble, brown hair tucked behind his ears, and that smile, polite, almost shy. Hi, he said. I stepped back instinctively. You've been around, I managed. Yeah, he shrugged lightly. We started the same day. His eyes flicked to my shoulder strap where my permit copy was clipped inside plastic. I am Garrett, he added. I hadn't told him my name. He watched recognition settle over my face and seemed pleased by it. You read it off the tag, I said. Sure. His smile widened. You camped at Cedar Hollow, he continued casually. Then the ridge site. You filtered at mile 6. You favor your left knee on descents. My mouth went dry. That's not. I started. You shouldn't hike alone, he said gently. It's not safe. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a power line snaps. I am fine, I said, sharper than intended. You need to keep your distance. He tilted his head, studying me like I'd said something curious. I already know you, he replied. Distance doesn't change that. The forest felt smaller, compressed. I stepped off the trail, giving him space to pass. He didn't move. Instead, he leaned slightly closer. I like how you say my name in your head, he said softly. Garrett, my stomach lurched. I never. You did, he interrupted. Last night, I hadn't spoken his name aloud. He watched the realization land. The trees around us stood indifferent and tall. A breeze moved through them, carrying the scent of damp moss. You are scaring me, I said, keeping my voice level. His smile softened, almost tender. I don't want to, he said. I just don't want you to forget. I am here. He stepped aside then, finally gesturing down the trail. After you. I didn't look back as I walked, but I felt him there, matching my pace, keeping distance, and smiling, always smiling. By the time the next campsite came into view through the trees, my thoughts had fractured into sharp, obsessive loops. He knows your name. He knows your gait. He knows your thoughts. Predatory familiarity. That's what it was. Not violence. Not yet. Just knowing. And as I stepped into the clearing and saw an empty camp, no other tents, no voices, I understood with a clarity that made my hands tremble. He had chosen the same site again, and this time there would be no storm to hide the sound of him coming closer. The first time I tried to disappear, a man named Mike knocked on my window and smiled like he'd already found me. I had chosen the turnout because it didn't exist, at least. That's what the satellite view suggested. A narrow gravel spur cutting off a Forest Service road somewhere in eastern Oregon, barely wide enough for a single vehicle. No fire ring, no trash, no sign that anyone had ever claimed it as theirs. If you didn't know it was there, you'd pass it at 40 miles an hour and never see the break in the trees. Invisible, I'd whispered to myself when I parked. The van ticked as it cooled. A warm metal smell drifted through the cabin, mingling with pine sap and the faint chemical sweetness of the insulation I'd installed 2 weeks earlier in my parents' driveway. The bed platform took up the back half. Beneath it, plastic bins. I'd measured everything twice before cutting wood. Wanted it tight, secure, Like, if the drawers fit perfectly, the world would too. It was my first week living out of it. First week of telling people I was on the road instead of between things. The forest was loud in the way only empty places are. Wind needled through the pines. Something small skittered in the brush. When I stepped outside to stretch, gravel crunched too sharply under my boots. Like I'd broken the silence instead of joined it. No other vehicles. No smoke from distant camps. No voices. I remember thinking, good, no one can see me. That was when he knocked. 3 soft taps on the passenger window. I flinched hard enough to bang my elbow on the counter. A face hovered inches from the glass, pale from the distortion, smiling. I slid the curtain back a fraction. He lifted a hand in a little wave. Hey there. He looked ordinary at first glance. Late 30s, maybe. Beard that hadn't committed to existing. Windbreaker zipped halfway. Baseball cap pulled low. But there was something wrong with the way he held himself. Like his muscles were set too tight under his skin, vibrating. I cracked the window an inch. Enough to hear him, not enough to let him touch anything. Hi, didn't expect to see anyone out here, he said. His voice was high and reedy, words tumbling too fast. He shifted from foot to foot. Gravel snapped under his shoes. You camping? Just for the night. He leaned closer, peering past me into the dim interior. I fought the urge to close the curtain entirely. Name's Mike. He grinned wider, as if offering something generous. I am just down the way. I glanced past him automatically. There was no down the way, just trees. Nice to meet you, I said carefully. I am Riley. I hadn't meant to use my real name. It slipped out like muscle memory. First time out here? Not exactly. He cocked his head. A quick, bird-like motion. His eyes didn't blink enough. It's quiet, he said. Too quiet for some people. The wind moved through the branches above us. A long, low hush. I like quiet. He rocked back on his heels, studying me. The smile didn't fade. It thinned. Well, if you need anything. He gestured vaguely toward the trees. I am around. I waited for him to mention his campsite. He didn't. Instead, he gave 2 quick taps on the van's metal side. An affectionate pat, like you'd give a horse, and stepped back. The forest swallowed him in 10 seconds. I locked the doors. I told myself the tension in my shoulders was leftover adrenaline. I was alone in a remote area. A stranger had appeared. That was normal to react to. Still, as the light thinned and the trees blurred into silhouettes, a question kept pressing at the back of my mind. Where was his vehicle? I killed the interior lights and waited for full dark. No headlights flared through the trees. No campfire glow. No sound of an engine. The temperature dropped quickly after sunset. The van held the day's warmth for a while. Metal skin radiating heat back at me. I cooked rice on the small propane stove. Listening. Wind. Branches. A distant coyote. And once, maybe, I thought I heard gravel shift near the rear tires. I froze mid-bite. Nothing followed. You are primed, I told myself. You met someone strange. Your brain wants a pattern. I cleaned up, slid the side door shut, checked the locks again. The act of securing each one steadied me. Front driver, front passenger, side, rear, a metal box. Safe. I changed into a sweatshirt and climbed into bed. The mattress dipped under my weight. Beneath me, plywood. Beneath that, empty air and earth. I turned off my phone to save battery. The darkness inside the van was absolute. That was when I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow, measured, close. I held my own breath until my lungs burned. It came again. Exhale, inhale. I rolled carefully onto one elbow and pressed my ear to the mattress. The sound sharpened. It was coming from below. For a second, I couldn't move. My mind skidded uselessly across possibilities. Animal, wind, pipes cooling, breathing. I slid off the bed and crouched. My knees knocked against the cabinet. The van rocked slightly. The breathing stopped. Silence roared in my ears. I waited. Nothing. You are not going to spiral, I told myself. You will check. You will confirm. You will not become the kind of woman who imagines men under her bed. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over the power button. If I turned it on, the screen would glow. If someone was under there, my stomach clenched. I stepped quietly to the back doors. The latch sounded deafening when I flipped it. I swung the doors open. Cold air rushed in, sharp with pine and damp soil. I dropped to my knees and leaned down, lowering my face toward the narrow shadow beneath the chassis. For a heartbeat, I saw only darkness. Then 2 eyes blinked back at me, a face, upside down from my angle, smiling. "Hey, Riley," I screamed and scrambled backward. Heels slipping in gravel, he flowed out from under the van with disturbing ease, unfolding to his full height. Pine needles clung to his jacket, dirt streaked his cheek. I staggered to my feet. "What the hell are you doing?" He tilted his head again. Same bird-like twitch. "You said you liked quiet." My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't find the door handle behind me. "You need to leave." He stepped closer. The forest pressed in around us, black and indifferent. "I was just making sure you were safe. I don't need you to." He lunged. I threw myself sideways. His fingers brushed my sleeve, snagged fabric, tore it. I bolted around the front of the van, gravel spraying under my boots. He was faster than he looked. I yanked the driver's door open, dove inside, slammed it shut, just as his palm smacked the window. The van rocked violently. "Riley," his voice shifted. Less reedy now, more urgent, angry. I jammed the key into the ignition. It slipped once, before catching. The engine roared alive. He stepped back, eyes wide, not afraid, calculating. I slammed the gear shift into reverse. He darted out of the way at the last second. As I backed down the narrow spur, branches scraping along the van's sides like fingernails. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the center of the turnout, watching, not chasing, just watching. I didn't stop driving for 30 miles. I found a truck stop near the highway and parked under floodlights, so bright they bleached color from everything. Semis idled around me, low diesel rumbles vibrating through the ground. I locked every door again, Saturday in the driver's seat, with my hands wrapped around the steering wheel. He had been under me, under the van, under my bed. The thought replayed in a loop that wouldn't shut off. He knew my name because I'd told him. I forced myself to breathe slowly, in through my nose, out through my mouth. "You are not prey," I told myself. "You are not prey." But when I finally lay down again, even surrounded by engines and light, I kept imagining the empty space beneath me and what it felt like to share it. I left before dawn. Part of me wanted to abandon the forest entirely, hug highways, stay near people, drown in visibility. But another part, stubborn and ashamed, refused to let him claim that space in my mind. He was one man, one unstable stranger. He didn't get to take this from me. By late afternoon, I found another spot, not as remote. A dispersed camping area with 3 other vehicles scattered at comfortable distances. An older couple in a fifth wheel, a guy with a rooftop tent, a retired school bus painted sky blue. Safety in numbers. I parked near the bus. The driver, a woman with silver braids and forearms, like braided rope, walked over as I leveled the van. "First time out?" she asked, eyeing my still, pristine setup. "Is it that obvious?" She laughed. "You'll get dirtier." Her name was Carla. She'd been on the road 4 years. We talked as the sun dropped, about routes, water refills, apps for finding BLM land. I almost told her about Mike. I didn't. Saying it aloud would make it real in a different way, less controllable. That night, I slept, not deeply, but without breathing under the van. By morning, the shame had crept in. "You overreacted. He hadn't actually hurt you. Maybe he was mentally ill. Maybe he thought it was funny. Maybe..." Number he had hidden under my vehicle. There was no version of that, which was normal. I stayed 3 nights in that area. On the 4th, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. My name written in block letters. Riley. No other message. Just that. My stomach folded in on itself. Carla swore she hadn't seen anyone approach. The other campers hadn't either. The handwriting was jagged, pressed so hard the paper tore. I didn't tell anyone about the eyes under the van. I left before sunset. This time, I didn't look for invisible. I drove until exhaustion blurred the lines on the road, then pulled into a rest area crowded with RVs. I parked between 2 large motorhomes, their bulk hemming me in. I told myself, he can't follow you everywhere. But when I stepped out to brush my teeth at the sink near the bathrooms, I saw a familiar windbreaker at the edge of the trees. Baseball cap, stillness, watching. When I blinked, he was gone. I walked the perimeter twice. Nothing, no sign. "You are escalating it in your head," I told myself. "You are turning one encounter into a narrative." But that night, I didn't sleep at all. Every vibration felt intentional. Every footstep outside. His, at 3 a.m. I slid quietly out of bed and pressed my ear to the floor again. Silence. And yet, the sanctuary had been broken. Metal didn't matter. Locks didn't matter. There was always space beneath, and I couldn't stop imagining him fitting into it perfectly.